I came home from a 2-week work trip to find a structure built on my property. Not a shed, not a fence, a full-framed building. Sitting on my land, without my knowledge, without my permission, and without a single permit bearing my name. And when I walked into the HOA office and asked what was going on, the board president looked me dead in the eyes and said, "That's community property now. You should be grateful we improved your lot. You should be grateful we improved your lot." I want you to hold on to that sentence, because 6 months later, I handed that woman a certified letter that made her physically pale. And every brick of that building came down on my terms, not hers. Before I get into exactly how this unraveled, if you've ever had an HOA treat your property like it belongs to them, you need to be subscribed to Care and Conflict right now. Hit that button, turn on notifications, because this channel exists for exactly this moment. Now, let me take you back to where this nightmare started. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I own a corner lot in a planned HOA community in suburban Georgia. I bought the property in 2019, a single-family home on roughly 1/3 of an acre. The lot has a side strip of land about 18 feet wide that runs along the eastern boundary. It's on my deed. It's in my survey. It's mine. Taxes come to me. Title is in my name. Has been since day one. The board president was a woman I'll call Brenda Sterling. Brenda had been on that board for going on 9 years. She walked around the neighborhood like she owned the deed to every house on the street. Clipboard lady, measuring tape lady. The kind of person who takes a $300 fine and turns it into a personality trait. In the spring of last year, my company sent me to oversee a project in Denver. 2 weeks, arranged for my neighbor's kid to water my plants. I put my mail on hold and I left. When I came back on a Sunday afternoon, I noticed something immediately. There was a small building, a fully framed, roofed, sided structure, sitting right on that eastern strip of my property. She answered the door in a polo shirt, holding a glass of sweet tea, completely unbothered. She said, and I will never forget this, "Oh, that's the new groundskeeping depot. Board voted on it last month. We needed centralized equipment, storage, and your lot had the most practical dead space. You should be grateful we improved your lot." I went home, sat down at my kitchen table, and did not sleep that night. But I didn't panic. I opened my laptop and I started building a file. The first thing I did was pull my original deed. Plain as day. The eastern boundary strip, lot dimensions matching the survey, recorded in the county property records. My name, my land. Not a gray area, not an easement. Mine. 2 days later, I received a letter from the HOA's property manager. It was almost impressive in its audacity. The letter claimed that the strip of land had been designated as a limited common element under the C&Rs, that the board had the authority to develop it for community benefit, and that any interference with the structure would result in fines of up to $500 per day. My attorney, Arthur, sent the HOA board a formal cease and desist letter the following morning. It cited Georgia Property Code, the recorded deed, the absence of any easement or plat amendment, and the lack of building permits. It demanded removal of the structure within 15 days. Brenda's response came 4 days later. Not from an attorney, from Brenda herself on HOA letterhead. She wrote that the board had reviewed their documents, stood by their authority, and that my attorney's letter had been noted. She also added a line that said, "We would remind Mr. My last name that continued antagonism toward the board may result in additional compliance reviews of his property. I hired a licensed demolition contractor." I pulled the required demolition permit from the county, which was issued without issue because the structure had no building permit on record, and I was the property owner of record. I notified the HOA in writing via certified mail. That demolition of the unpermitted encroachment would occur on a specific date. On the morning of the demolition, Brenda showed up on the street with 2 other board members. She was furious. She told my contractor to stop. My contractor politely showed her the demolition permit and pointed out the property lines. Brenda called the police. The officer who responded was professional and thorough. He reviewed my deed, the demolition permit, and the property survey that I had brought in a folder specifically for this moment. He spoke with Brenda. He came back to me and said, "Sir, this appears to be your property and you have a valid permit. I can't stop a legal demolition. The structure came down in about 4 hours. Clean removal. The concrete footings were broken up and hauled off. By 3 o'clock that afternoon, that strip of land looked exactly like it did before I left for Denver. 3 weeks later, I was served. The HOA filed a civil lawsuit against me for destruction of association property, claiming damages of $42,000. $42,000 for a shed they built on my land without permission. During discovery, the legal process where both sides exchanged documents and evidence, the HOA had to produce records of the board vote. What those records showed was that the vote had been taken at a special session meeting with only 3 of 5 board members present, with no notice sent to homeowners as required under Georgia HOA law. Their own minutes destroyed their own case. Arthur also obtained the construction invoices. The HOA had paid a contractor $42,000 using association dues to build an unpermitted structure on private property. He submitted those invoices to the Georgia Secretary of State's HOA Division and to the County Building Department. The settlement terms were dictated by me and my attorney. The HOA dropped their lawsuit entirely. They agreed to pay my attorney's fees, which totaled just over $11,000. And the 3 board members who voted for the construction, including Brenda, resigned from the board as a condition of the settlement. I went home, walked out to that eastern strip of my lot, and stood there for a few minutes. Just grass, just my land. Clean, clear, and legally documented 6 ways from Sunday. Brenda was counting on intimidation. What she was not counting on was documentation. The HOA had all the aggression. I had all the paperwork. And in the end, paperwork wins every single time. Hit that like button. And if you are not subscribed to Care in Conflict yet, this is your sign. Subscribe now, because your land is yours and nobody gets to tell you otherwise.